This lesson focuses on rhetorical devices in Letter from a Birmingham Jail. Rhetoric is the ancient art of argument and discourse. Now, rhetorical devices are used to manipulate the language to effectively transmit the author's message to the reader. We're going to be looking today at anaphora, repetition, and syntax. And specifically with syntax, we'll be looking at the periodic sentence. Anaphora. This is the repeated words or phrases at the beginnings of successive clauses or sentences. So Churchill, famous Prime Minister of England during World War II, his famous example, "We shall not flag or fail, we shall go on to the end, we shall fight in France, we shall fight on the seas and oceans, we shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air, we shall defend our island whatever the cost may be." And here, this lengthy slide, paragraph 14 from your text, and I don't want you to worry about reading the whole thing. I want to draw your attention to the use of anaphora here. But when you have seen, when you have seen, when you see, when you suddenly find, when you have to concoct, when you take, when you are humiliated, when your first name becomes, when you are harried, when you are forever fighting. This is Martin Luther King Jr. using this technique of anaphora. And what's the effect of it? It just builds and builds and builds. What he's doing here is he's trying to make us understand this long list of grievances that he has had to endure. And by putting it all into one sentence, building it up with this repeated phrase at the beginning, it really drives it home. Now, repetition is the next technique we're going to look at, and of course we know that needless repetition is deadly, but strategically used repetition can help readers to focus on a key idea and help drive home the intended message. So in paragraph 9, we see these repeated terms. We speedily decided to postpone action. We decided again to postpone action. We endured postponement after postponement. And what happens here is, through the repetition of this word postpone, it just keeps putting it farther off the radar there, so it builds up in the reader this feeling of postponing. In paragraphs 13 and 14, we have the repetition of the word wait. And this wait has almost always meant never. We have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. So again, it just really helps to intensify the message of the text. Now, syntax. Syntax is defined as the way words are put together in sentences, the way sentences are constructed. You know about simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. This might be new to you. A loose sentence, the meaning occurs at the beginning of the sentence. And in a periodic sentence, the meaning comes at the end, just like a period. That's a mnemonic device to help you remember what a periodic sentence is. So again, we return to that paragraph 14. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that this sentence begins, "But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers," etc., etc. And this sentence concludes down here. Now, Martin Luther King did not just sit down and say, "Oh, I think I'm going to see if I can write a sentence that's got over 300 words in it," which this does. But what he's pointing out here is by delaying the meaning of the sentence to the very end, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. All of the rest of this is made up of dependent clauses. You don't get the meaning of the sentence until you get to the very end. And it has that effect of making you wait, just like he has had to wait. Now, a possible thesis for an analysis essay, if we were looking at rhetorical devices, might be, in his famous text, Letter from a Birmingham Jail, Martin Luther King Jr. makes use of strategic repetition and tension-filled periodic sentences to create for the reader the sense of frustration that accompanied delaying the civil rights promised to all Americans in the U.S. Constitution. So that would be our thesis statement for rhetorical analysis, focusing on rhetorical devices.